Originally, I was going to make a video talking about the new Solstice event, how it basically sucks, considering it's the same thing that has been for like ever, with more microtransactions and more empty grinding, but you know what? I think we've all had enough negativity recently, with lots of doom and gloom around the community. So let's talk about something cool and fun. Along with the update adding Solstice, there are a few changes and bug fixes. Among those changes, we saw a buff to the lever action scout rifles with a whopping 30% increase. That's a lot on its own, and that's before you even count any damage perks or anything like that. This has always been my favorite type of weapon in Destiny 2. They're just so much fun to use, but for the longest time they've been nigh unusable simply because of their lack of any real damage. But has this 30% increase changed that? Are they a real contender for your primary slot? Let's find out. First things first, there are only 4 of these, not including Dead Man's Tale. I'll be covering only the legendary lever actions, no Dead Man's. In the Kinetic slot, we've got the Prophet and the Last Rite. The Prophet is a stasis weapon that exclusively drops from Trials, and the Last Rite is a ritual weapon from a few seasons ago, so that one you can get from the exotic kiosk near the vaults in the tower. Last Rite sucks. There's no way around it. It's awful. Bad perks, mainly just bad perks. That's enough on its own to trash this thing. It's a kinetic, so you can squeeze a bit more damage out of it over its elemental brothers, but those perks are just trash. There may be a play in PvP, but this isn't a PvP discussion, so for now, I'll just stand by it being complete garbage. The Prophet is much more enticing if you're willing to play Trials. It's stasis, so you've got your usual suspect, Headstone. There's also some interesting things you can do like Discord and Cascade, or Hipfire Grip and Offhand Strike. I think if you're going to go for this, you're probably going to go for some stasis stuff, so I would say the role to go for is probably just Headstone and Demo, so tried and true. If you really want a kinetic slot lever action, you're probably after the Prophet, but I do think our energy variants are worth talking about a bit more, so let's shift over to those. We've got 2 here. Long Arm from the Spire of the Watcher dungeon, and Time-Worn Wayfarer from the current season. Or episode, whatever. Now, Long Arm is the older of the 2 by about 2 years, and that usually means that it doesn't stand quite as tall as the new stuff, as the older weapons typically don't bring the heat in terms of perks. My personal pick for Long Arm is Wellspring and Explosive Payload. Wellspring is just really nice, getting your abilities back quicker, and Explosive Payload makes the weapon deal a bit more damage, a bit of splash damage, and counts as multiple hits for its origin trait, Text Balanced Stock. But let's stop right here for a minute, because yes, Explosive Payload is supposed to increase the damage, but with Long Arm here, it's actually not. If we compare this Long Arm with the Time-Worn Wayfarer, you can see that Long Arm lands 2 numbers adding up to 7265, and Time-Worn lands a hit of 7295. So I'm not really sure what's going on here, but this is a pretty big deal when it comes to picking which of the 2 of these to use. Long Arm doesn't have Volt Shot or any other solid damage perks. Explosive Payload is by far the way to go, and if it's not adding any damage, it's really hard to justify using it over Time-Worn, which has much better perks across the board. Not to mention it's craftable, meaning that you can pick exactly what you want and enhance it. So let's ignore the rest and take a look at Time-Worn, since it's clearly the best option. The best apples to apples comparison I can think of would be Iggy. Iggy is a 120 hand cannon, which is the same rate of fire as Time-Worn. They're both solar, and they can both roll Heal Clip and Incandescent, which, let's be honest, is what most of us are using. Damage-wise, it's neck and neck. Like, seriously, the difference in damage between these 2 isn't even worth talking about, so naturally I have to talk about it. Time-Worn does a microscopic amount more than Iggy, like within 100 points of damage against something that deals 12,000 damage. Which is good, they both shoot at the same rate of fire, so it's only natural that they would both deal somewhat similar amounts of damage. So now, it's mostly about which one you prefer to use. Now in harder activities, legend stuff, grandmasters, stuff where you're under-leveled, yeah, the lever actions are going to continue sucking. Most primaries do outside of the exotics at that level, so it's par for the course. As far as actually using these things, it's a bit unique in that you actually can hipfire them, which I do love doing. Now these aren't on the same level as DMT, you're just not going to get the accuracy you will with DMT after the first couple of shots, but in the activities you'd want to use this, a couple of shots is really all you need. After those first few shots you'll need to zoom in or slip some abilities in to let the hipfire regain its accuracy. The other big thing you have to keep in mind with these is that you want to be reloading constantly. Since you reload 2 shots at a time, draining the entire weapon could leave you with a lengthy reload at an inopportune time. This is another reason, as if you needed one, to run heal clip on this thing. Score a takedown, and after those first 2 shots get loaded, boom, healing. It's a quick activation of heal clip, and while reloading the entire weapon might take a while, those first couple of shots get slapped in pretty quickly, which can save your bacon with heal clip. Listen, these lever scouts have always been behind, even when they were supposedly getting the exotic damage buff to red bars, but with this 30% increase, they finally feel like a valid weapon to use. They actually deal damage now. With this video, I wanted to bring some attention to these things because they're a lot of fun to use. I think they're pretty unique, and yeah, they may not be for everyone, but that's what makes them what they are. They're different to other weapons, and they play like it. If you haven't used one in a while, give it a try. They're in a pretty good place right now. Let's talk lever actions down in the comments, partner. Does anyone else like the Space Cowboy fantasy, or have I just watched too much Cowboy Bebop? Let me know down in the comments. Until next time.